All right, we've talked about a lot of introductory material for Proverbs, and now we're going to get into going through the book. We're going to spend some time in the first 9 chapters of Proverbs. Should be really interesting. We're going to start in chapters 1 and 2. And in what we've kind of already talked about is the the purposes of the book of Proverbs. So there's it's to know wisdom, it's to get instruction, it's to get insight, to understand justice and judgment and equity. For the simple person, and that means someone who's naive and not well experienced in the world, it's to give them understanding of how the world works, typically. And like, hey, if you do these things, your life will go well. Do these things, you'll probably die young. You should fear the Lord. It's the beginning of knowledge. It's the beginning of wisdom. To have a humble attitude where I don't know it all, and so I need wisdom. I need someone to give me something I don't possess. I need that. Have that attitude, you're making a really great start. But that touches every aspect of life. And that's what the little 1 to 2 verse Proverbs really get into, which is really good stuff. As we go through Proverbs chapter 1, we're going to read from verse 7 all the way to the end of the chapter. And then we'll come back and break things down. It's broken down in these 2 sections that you see on the slide. Fathers urging to avoid gangs, promising easy, unjust riches. And then a warning against disregarding wisdom's call. This is where we get to see wisdom personified as a woman. The first time we get to see that. She's just calling out, please listen to me. It's pretty awesome. So we'll start in verse 7, which is our verse alert. And the Word of God says in verse 7, fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother. For they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head, and chains about thy neck. Like, this is really important. Please listen to this. My son, every time you see that, kind of underline it. It's almost as you read through the first 9 chapters, there's little breaks in those chapters where it starts off with my son, my son. Those are good things to notice. All right, so sorry, my son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. If they say, come with us, let us lay wait for blood, let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down into the pit. We shall find all precious substance. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in thy lot among us. Let us all have one purse. My son, walk not thou in the way of them, in the way with them. Refrain thy foot from their path, for their feet run to evil, and make haste to shed blood. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird, and they lay wait for their own blood. They lurk privily for their own lives. So are the ways of every one that is greedy of gain, which taketh away the life of the owners thereof. So that whole section is summed up in verse 19. Like, these gang members, they want to entice the young person who's not wise in the ways of the world, join the gang, and do violence and theft, murder and theft. They're going to lie in wait, murder people, and then take their things. It's going to be an easy life. There's no danger. Right, yeah, you should laugh at that. Right? Yeah, you should be laughing. Like, that's ridiculous. Of course, they don't mention any of the dangers that come along with trying to murder people, because usually people don't take kindly to being murdered. Not for not for long. Yeah, depending on yeah, it's like if you try, you're like, oh, that looks like a good mark, and then they pull out a gun and shoot you back. Like, the gang didn't tell me about that. At least they didn't mention it in this whole we're gonna make all this money and fill our houses with plunder. It's gonna be great. Yeah, you didn't think about that, did you? No, because they didn't mention that part. But it is so are the ways of everyone that is greedy of gain. This is what's in the heart of someone who's covetous. They want to manipulate and use and abuse people to get things. That's what it's about. They take away the life of the owners. So what they think they're getting, like they think they're getting all these things, but they're actually getting their own death. They destroy themselves with this greed. That's what they get. Verse 20. Wisdom crieth without. She uttereth her voice in the streets. She crieth in the chief place of concourse, in the openings of the gates. In the city she uttereth her words, saying, How long, simple ones, will ye love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning, and the fools hate knowledge. Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you. I will make known my words unto you. Because I have called. That's her plea. That's a plea. Please listen to me. But because I have called, and you refused, I have stretched out my hand, and no man regarded. But ye have set at naught all my counsel, and would none of my reproof. I will also laugh at your calamity. I will mock you. I will mock when your fear cometh. Like Schadenfreude. I told you that was going to happen, and then you fall on your face. When your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind, when distress and anguish cometh upon you, then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but shall not find me. For that they hated knowledge, and did not choose the fear of the Lord. Choose. They would none of my counsel. They despised all my reproof. Therefore shall they eat the fruit of their own way, and be filled with their own devices. The turning away of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. But whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely, and shall be quiet from fear of evil. All right, so let's back up and go back to verses 7 and 8 and 9, and then into really 10 through the end of the chapter. So again, this is broken down into the two big sections. First, there's the fathers urging to avoid gangs, promising easy, unjust riches, right? And so there's the evil man versus the father's wisdom. There's a contrast here. Throughout the book of Proverbs, it's a father trying to give his son wisdom. Listen to me. I know how this stuff works. I've lived life a lot longer than you. Please listen to what I have to say. But he's only trying to influence him. And that's all the power you have as a parent. You can't control children. You can't make your children make the right choices. They have to choose it. Have a lot of influence on them. But eventually they have to choose for themselves. They have to be held responsible for their own actions. And so while you have a privileged position as a parent, which is great, use that while you can. You're building a lot of trust with your children in the early years as they grow up, so that when you tell them something that might save them from death, hopefully they'll listen. But in the end, it's their choice. And it's the same with this evil man who's trying to persuade a young man, join the gang. It's just persuasion. It's a temptation. It's influence. It's peer pressure. It's that kind of thing. Ultimately, it's your choice. Choose one of two paths. The path of the fear of the Lord and with wisdom. Choose the path and listen to an evil man. Leads to violence against others and get rich quick schemes. Ridiculous. So the Net Bible note on verse 13 had a good note. It says, the enticement was to join a criminal gang and adopt a life of crime to enjoy ill-gotten gain. That's what the enticement is. It's to get rich quick. A quote from Garrett in his New American Commentary. Proverbs does not begin its instruction with lofty or abstract analysis, but with a simple and straightforward appeal for the reader to reject association with criminals. From the very outset, therefore, this book is grounded in the lives and problems of real people. Apparently, in ancient Israel, no less than in the modern world, the comradeship, easy money, and feeling of empowerment offered by gangs was a strong temptation to the young man who felt overwhelmed by the difficulties of the life he confronted every day. The lesson for the modern church is that it should clearly and directly address real life and real temptations. This is evident. And that's what Proverbs does. So, what is the evil man offering? He's offering violence against others. And it involves murder and theft, right? Come, let us lay, verse 11, let us lay wait for blood. Let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them up alive as the grave and whole as those that go down to the pit. Which is really interesting. They're like, especially if you look at this section, they want to kill people, take their things. And then if you go down towards the end of the section, it says in verse 18, and they lay wait for their own blood. There's a reversal there. So they're like, let's lay wait for blood. And then wisdom says, actually, they're laying in wait for their own blood. Things that they want to commit to others, they're actually committing against themselves. They're destroying themselves with violence against others. Swallow them up as the grave. All precious substance fill our houses with spoil. Cast thy lot among us. Let us have one purse. We'll share everything. It's going to be great. Like, what's convincing about this? Like, when you read that, do you go, who would ever listen to that? Is that what you're thinking? Like, that's not persuasive at all. Who would believe that? A lot of people. It's peer pressure. It's peer pressure. Notice all the us's and we, right? And our. We're going to share everything. You can be a part of our group. We will love you and accept you. That's what people are looking for. Love and acceptance. And they're looking for, and that's what peer pressure is. It's a strong influence for young people. Like, come with us. We will love you. We will accept you. You don't have to be held down by all of these moral constraints that the church or your parents or whatever holding you back. We'll accept you just as you are, as what you want to do, what you want to be. Come with us. It's a lot of peer pressure. And peer pressure is not always a bad thing, right? Because you become like the people that you're around. So what if you're around good people, people with integrity, people who hold you responsible for your actions, and that you can hold them responsible for their actions? What do you become like? I'm like them, which is good. But if you're influenced by the evil man instead of the Father's wisdom, become like the evil man, which obviously is bad. What are some causes for peer pressure? It's a strong desire to fit in, especially with teenagers going through puberty. Things are wild. And it's like, I feel so uncomfortable with everything. My body's changing. My relationships to the opposite sex is completely changing. I'm receiving attention or not receiving attention from the opposite sex, and that makes me feel a certain way. I just want to fit in. There's all these cliques at school, and they're all breaking off into these smaller groups. I don't fit in anywhere. I just want to fit in. That's a very strong influence. And it could lead to being influenced by the evil man, or at least his way of thinking. Kind of a nuance on that: to avoid rejection and gain social acceptance. Kids will do stupid things to impress their friends. Hey guys, watch this. Like, yeah, that sounds like an EMT call. That's what it sounds like. Right? Right. We're all laughing because it's true. None of you were that person trying to do dumb things to impress anybody. Certainly not anyone of the opposite sex. No, definitely not. Right? Hormonal inconsistencies, again, for teenagers, it's up and down, up and down. Things are changing. Like, why am I so attracted to this person? I can't even think when I'm around them. And then they can be influenced by that person, or at least have more influence than what would normally happen, right? There's personal or social confusion or anxiety. That is a huge thing in our day. Like there is so much like I think a part of the answer to the whole transgender explosion is that it's a social contagion, right? It's persuasive to young women, particularly young women. That's where the explosion is happening, where they're in a society that does not really give a good idea of what femininity is. No identity that they can identify with. There's also a lot of pressure, if you believe uh, a lot of feminist teaching, then it's a male-dominated world, and that's just the way it is. It's not changing anytime soon. Need to change it, but it's not changing. Well, what if I just become one of the guys? That might be part of the explanation. And it's not just this. There's lots for there, but there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of anxiety. Like I don't feel comfortable in my body when I look in the mirror. I don't feel like I should look like that. I should look like something else. A lot of confusion, right? You just say join the club. I don't look right. It's like, but you need someone with wisdom to guide you through that. What you need are your parents to guide you through that, help you with that. There's a lot of confusion and anxiety. A lack of structure at home, a giant influence for peer pressure. If there's not a solid mother and father at home, peer pressure will rule. It's going to happen, especially if there's not a father. It reminded me of this rap song, which you're like, what rap song? This Christian rap artist, his name's Lecrae, is on an album called Rehab. He has this beautiful metaphor where he uses sin as a drug. And so he says we need rehab, and Jesus, rehab. We have to come off the drug of sin and learn how not to give into that temptation anymore. That's like the metaphor for the whole album, and I think it's his best album. But anyways, there's a song on that album called Just Like You. And in the second verse, I think it touches on all of this peer pressure stuff. And chorus is, I just want to be like you, walk like, talk like, even think like you. The only one I could look to, you're teaching me to be just like you. Well, I gotta be just like you. I gotta be just like you. And so then he's going to talk about all of the influences that he has on his life. And in the second verse, what he sees. Now all I see is money, cars, jewels, stars, womanizers, tough guys, guns, knives, and scars, drug pushers, thugs, strippers, fast girls, fast life, everything I wanted and everything I could ask life. Everything I wanted? Is that everything that people want? Especially in that kind of culture? At least that's what's promoted. Rap music, right? If this isn't, everything I wanted and everything I could ask life. If this isn't living, well, then they lied. Well, I guess I married an old wives' tale. Wow, fail. I don't know another way to go. This is the only way they ever showed. I got this emptiness inside that got me fighting for approval because I missed out on my daddy saying, way to go. And get that verbal affirmation and know how to treat a woman, and know how to fix an engine to keep the car running. So now I'm looking at the media and following what they feed me, rap stars, trap stars, whoever wants to lead me. Even though they lie, they still tell me that they love me. They say I'm good at bad things, at least they're proud of me. I think he hits it right there. Like, doesn't matter if you're good at bad things. Good and bad, like that doesn't matter. At least they're proud of you and you're looking for that acceptance. That's a temptation. That's a danger. Don't go towards that. Don't go near gang. Their habitual lifestyle is that of violence and taking advantage of others. And at the bottom of it is covetousness and greed. Another Net Bible note on verse 18. It's number 88. They think that they're going to shed innocent blood, but in their blindness, they don't realize that it's their own blood that they shed. Their greed will lead to their destruction. This is an example of ironic, poetic justice. They don't intend to destroy themselves. This is what they accomplish. Greed, that's the end of the quote. Greed takes away the life of those who live by greed. Like fill in the blank with any movie that, like Wall Street, old 80s movie. Yeah. Like greed will destroy you. But verse 18, and they lay in wait for their own blood. They lurk privily for their own lives. That's what that was talking about. It's their own blood that they shed. All right, so the rest of chapter 1, crime is self-destructive. That's the last point. Next part of the chapter. It's a warning against disregarding wisdom. So it's like you need to listen to wisdom. And there's this really cool chiastic structure. So chiasm is, in Greek, chi is shaped like an X. So you see how it kind of makes a point like that? So it's a poetic structure in Hebrew poetry that emphasizes the midpoint. So letter E is the midpoint. Everything leads to that and then flows out from it. And if you look at, and it has like the opposites, right? A, B, C, D, D with a little apostrophe, so D not, C not. They match. And that's what makes it a poetic structure. So what you see in A is what you're going to see in the conclusion B, and it all flows together to get to letter E, the announcement of judgment falls. All right, but the introduction, the appeal for listeners, verses 20 and 21. Wisdom crieth without. That means she's just out and about in the town, crying out. She uttereth her voice in the street. She crieth in the chief place of concourse, in the openings of the gates. In the city she uttereth her words, saying, notice, this is available for everyone. This is not something hidden. It's not like you have to go to the top of the mountain to reach the monk that has the sage wisdom, and then you have to spend half your life just sitting in contemplation with this person, and then maybe you'll truly understand wisdom. Like, no, wisdom is out in the open. She's like, listen to me. Please, don't go that way. Don't do it. Just listen to me, right? Wisdom's in public. And it addresses an audience. That's the next verse. Who's the audience? Oh. The audience is in verse 22. How long, simple one, will you love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning, and the fools hate knowledge. So these are the kinds of people who need wisdom but are most likely to reject it. Simple ones are the naive, gullible people that have not walked down the path of foolishness too far yet. These are the people that's like, oh, you might be able to save them from a lot of harm if they just listen to wisdom now. Scorners, these are the cynical and defiant freethinkers who ridicule the righteous and all for which they stand. They reject truth. They have an illicit desire for mockery. Like they're every troll on the internet. Right? They just do it for the lulz. That's it. Yeah, you get in the comment section and they say the thing that's going to upset, offend, and make somebody mad. And then I gotta respond. It's like they're just mocking you. The only reason they're saying it is to get a rise out of you. They're cynical in their view. They reject truth. Fools. One completely lacking in understanding, implying to be a rebel against a standard or person. Crying out to these people, please listen to me. How long will you love simplicity? Right? Your naivete. How long will you dwell in that? How long will you stew in that? Like, come out of that. Embrace wisdom. Verse 23, which is the declaration of disclosure. So she's starting her message to them. Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you. I will make known my words unto you. There's a little bit of a poetic structure there. It's kind of the same phrase over and over, but there's a difference at the end. Right? I will pour out my spirit unto you. I will make known my words to you. And so to interpret spirit and words are in parallel. And so it's like, I will give you my thoughts that are in my mind, and you will get that through my words. And then you can have those for yourself, and it'll reshape your mind and how you think. And once you reshape your mind, then that'll inform how you are to walk the world. Wisdom is willing to just pour that out, just give it to you. All these people are going down the wrong path, so wisdom is a reproof. They're already fools. They're already scorners. They're already the simple-minded. You need to turn, right? Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will give this to you if you turn. Remember, it's a choice. You have to choose to turn. The Proverbs are words of wisdom that help you get your mind right and then set you on the right path. Why is she saying this? The reason for the announcement. What's the reason for the announcement that's coming? The announcement of judgment, which is middle. So it's like, this is what will happen if you turn, but because you've refused, right? Because I have called and you refused, I have stretched out my hand and no man regarded. But you have set at naught all my counsel and would none of my reproof. Like, the hearers have chosen to reject the offer of wisdom. The offer of wisdom is God's offer to humanity. It's available right here in God's word. There's no excuse. There's no, I didn't know. Didn't? It's out in the open. She's crying in the streets. Like, this is a public thing. And you know what? They're going to miss out on the benefits because this is the judgment of wisdom. She'll laugh. I will laugh at your calamity. Like, if you just would have turned, you wouldn't have to suffer these consequences. Just would have turned away from it. This is the climax of the chiastic structure. Judgment on the foolish. The fool will suffer the natural consequences of their stubborn rebellion. Right? When calamity strikes, it's too late to seek help from wisdom. Wisdom is a prior thing to keep you from the calamity, from the destruction. You have to listen to it prior. After destruction falls upon you, it's too late to seek wisdom. You've already missed the boat. And she laughs at your calamity. I will mock you when your fear cometh. When your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind. When distress and anguish cometh upon you. You know what? Sucks to suck. It does. Like when you're in that moment, it's like, oh, I should have listened to so-and-so. Yeah, you should have. Garrett, in his New American Commentary, he has this to say. Wisdom is a personification. Because you might be thinking, oh man, wisdom laughs at their calamity? That sounds pretty harsh. You might be thinking that. Garrett has a good note on that. Wisdom is a personification and not a person or a goddess. The statement that fools call on her when they get into trouble is not a reference to a literal prayer, but a dramatic picture of fools trying to find a way out of the trouble they are in. They call on her in the sense that they are at last ready to listen to advice, but it's too late. Their indifference to wisdom has already destroyed them. Anders, in his Holman Old Testament commentary, he says, wisdom's laughter might seem heartless, but wisdom is not a true person. It's a force which carries with it natural cause and effect consequences. Therefore, the laughter simply shows that we cannot escape the consequences of rejecting rebuke. So if you think, oh, someone's telling me I shouldn't do this, or they're trying to rebuke me for going down this path, and then you reject that rebuke because it makes you feel, they're just telling me what to do, and I don't like that. So I'll just reject that and go on my own way. Like, okay. But these are the natural consequences of that, if someone's trying to lead you down the path of wisdom. In verse 24, wisdom called, and they refused. Now they call, and she refuses. It appears that wisdom's primary contribution is to help avoid trouble. That's what wisdom does. Helps you avoid trouble. It does not keep us from pain after we have gotten into it, or necessarily make it easy to extricate ourselves from it. Wisdom helps us before we get into trouble. So, the reasons for it. Verse 29. For that they hated, verse 28. They shall call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. For that they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. They didn't choose that. They would none of my counsel. They despised all of my reproof. That's why. So again, it's a reiteration of the reasons for the judgment. You're suffering your natural consequences, right? You're reaping what you've sown. Now you're going to have to deal with that. Like, I could have saved you a lot of heartache, but you didn't listen to my reproof. So here it is. And again, we're just flipping the structure, and now we're going back away from the judgment. So it's similar to verses 24 and 25. God's offer of wisdom to humanity was rejected. They didn't choose the fear of the Lord, and their attitude towards God influenced their choices, which naturally led to calamity. So this is theological. What's your attitude towards God? They didn't choose the fear of the Lord. You don't have a humble heart. You're not going to listen to reproof. If you listen to reproof and you go, oh, I should change, then that indicates that you have a humble heart and that you're willing for the Spirit of the Lord to influence your life and guide you in a different direction. But if you choose not the fear of the Lord, then you're going to suffer the natural calamity of rebellious choices. Verse 31. Therefore shall they eat the fruit of their own way and be filled with their own devices. If you're thinking Galatians 6:7, you should be. Right? This is just a principle. Be not deceived, God is not mocked, even though the scorners want to mock him. That was my addition. Paul didn't write that. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Suffering natural consequences for their scheming. That's what happens. Verse 31. And be filled with their own devices. Think they can just scheme their way out of these natural consequences, but they can't. That's what happens. Again, who's the audience? What's the fate of the fools? Reference to the audience again in verse 32. For the turning away of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. Again, we get a reiteration of the audience, just like back up in verse 22. And then the conclusion. It's an appeal to the hearer. Benefit, right, of hearing wisdom is to avoid all this trouble. But whoso hearken unto me shall dwell safely and shall be quiet. That's the conclusion. It's an appeal, again, to the hearer. Please, this is what's going to happen. And avoid all this trouble. Don't do this. Please listen before you make your choice. And if you having indifference or say not choosing wisdom, or just I'm going to remain neutral and not make a choice. That's a choice. Still a choice. Can't remain neutral when it comes to these decisions. So, a recap of chapter 1. Book of Proverbs is introduced as a collection of wise sayings and teachings to impart wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. The purpose of the book is to help readers understand the fear of the Lord, which is the beginning of knowledge. The book warns against the enticement of sinners and encourages readers to listen to wisdom's call. It's read. Those who ignore wisdom's call will suffer the consequences of their actions. Those who listen will be blessed. The chapter concludes by emphasizing the importance of heeding wisdom's call and warning against rejecting knowledge. That's chapter 1, and it's brilliant. Like the big 1-2 punch. Chapter 2 follows from that, and it's here are the benefits of wisdom. Here are the benefits. In a summary of chapter 2, wisdom must be sought like any rare treasure. When found, it'll save one from violent men and seductive women. It is more valuable than gold and brings true happiness. That's from Anders in his Holman Old Testament commentary. So let's see. Let's read Proverbs chapter 2, and we'll probably get to the first 4 verses and we'll have to stop. But Proverbs chapter 2. My son, again, there's another break with that repeated phrase, my son. My son, if thou wilt receive my words and hide my commandments with thee, so that thou incline thine ear unto wisdom, and apply thine heart to understanding. Yea, if thou criest after knowledge, and liftest up thy voice for understanding, if thou seek her as silver, and searchest for her as for hid treasures, then shalt thou understand the fear of the Lord, and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord giveth wisdom, out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. He layeth up sound wisdom for the righteous. He is a buckler to them that walk uprightly. He keepeth the paths of judgment, and preserveth the way of his saints. Then shalt thou understand righteousness, and judgment, and equity, yea, every good path. When wisdom entereth into thine heart, and knowledge is pleasant unto thy soul, discretion shall preserve thee, understanding shall keep thee, to deliver thee from the way of the evil man, from the man that speaketh froward things, who leave the path of uprightness, to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice to do evil and delight in the frowardness of the wicked. The word froward means perverse, crooked, not a straight path. To deliver thee from the strange woman, even from the stranger, which flattereth with her words, which forsake the guide of her youth, and forgetteth the covenant of her God. For her house inclineth unto death, and her paths to the dead. None that go unto her again return again, neither take hold of paths of life. That thou mayest walk in the ways of good men, and keep paths of the righteous. For the upright shall dwell in the land, and the perfect shall remain in it. But the wicked shall be cut off from the earth, and the transgressors shall be rooted out of it. So, gotta search for wisdom like rare treasure. It's better than gold. It's better than silver. That's what you need. You need wisdom. It'll save you from these two characters, from the evil man and from the immoral woman. We've already seen the evil man in chapter 1. That was a little bit more of what the evil man looks like. And there'll be more coming in the first 9 chapters of Proverbs. But you have the evil man who's like trying to entice people to join their gang, get easy riches by either murder or taking advantage of people, and then stealing their things. That's his way, right? It's all crooked. It's in darkness. It's perverse, and they delight in the perverse things that wicked people do. And then there's the immoral woman. She flatters men, and there's even more on that as we get further into the book of Proverbs. There's an expansion of exactly what an immoral woman will use to entice a man come to bed with her later in the book of Proverbs. We don't have time to look at that right this moment. But it is... Oh, here. It's in Proverbs 7:14 through 20. We'll get there eventually. That was the first bell. So we'll just pause right here, and we'll just start with chapter 2 next week, and it should be good. But let's do some verse alert, and then we can visit and enjoy each other's company.